evaluate whether it is strong. Our learning objectives for today is to understand what it means to delineate an argument and figure out how to determine whether an argument is strong or weak. When you delineate an argument, what you are really doing is telling about in detail what the argument says. You look to see what the claims are, the reasons that the author gives for their stance, and what evidence they provide, which is like facts or information that prove their claims to be true. This is the graphic organizer we will be using to break apart an argument when we are describing what the argument says. At the top, you'll see that you first identify what the author's argument is. This is the author's position on a specific topic, or their stance. It's what the author believes about the topic. The claims are the reasons the author believes in their argument. There will probably be more than one claim if the argument is strong, because one reason for believing in something is not enough to fully convince an audience. Along with claims, there should be evidence or proof that supports the claims or reasons the author believes the argument. So there will be some kind of fact that will explain why that reason is true, that therefore proves the argument. At times, additional evidence is needed if the original evidence is not strong enough by itself to prove the claim. Authors might also include additional evidence if they want to make sure that something is believed to be true by their reader. So, after you break the pieces of an argument apart, it is your job to evaluate whether or not they are strong. We do this with in three different ways of looking at things. The first is we try to decide if the argument is valid. Is it defensible? Do the points seem true? So, like, if I were to argue to you that the sky is purple, it would not be a valid argument because you know that that is just not true. We would then also talk about whether the argument is relevant, meaning that the evidence that the author uses to support their argument actually connects to their points, and the claims they use to support their argument, the reasons, connects to the overall argument as well. If those things are not connected, the argument is not going to be strong. And then finally, you need to think about whether there is sufficient evidence and reasons to convince the audience that the argument is true. So here's an example. Let's pretend that we're breaking apart an argument and the author's stance is that people with mental health problems have disadvantages in society. Take a second to read over what I might have found in this argument. So one of the first things I'm going to be thinking about when I'm evaluating this argument is, does the evidence work? Is it true? So if the stance is that people with mental health problems have disadvantages, one of the reasons that the author thought this was that those with mental health problems struggle to receive affordable care. And their evidence is that when building Medicaid, Congress didn't want to waste federal money on mental illness. This does not provide me with any facts and figures, though it is an interesting point. So I would maybe want an additional piece of evidence from the author to explain how much money they put into mental health illness when building their healthcare plans. But it does seem that that might be true. The other thing I have to look at is whether or not the evidence is connected. So talking about affordable care and the government not wanting to waste money on mental illness seems to me to be a connected evidence and claim, because clearly if the government is not putting money into mental illness problems, then people with mental illnesses are going to foot more of the bill. And then finally, I have to consider whether there is enough evidence. And I kind of already mentioned this, but while this seems to be true, I need to have that fact and figure to fully support my understanding of whether or not mental health problems, people with mental health problems have affordable care. And this is how you evaluate an argument.